If you come across a mushroom like this while hiking in the woods, you'll probably want to stay away from it because of its color. This is because, over time, our minds have come to associate blue-colored things with something poisonous or dangerous that should be avoided. However, contrary to popular belief, this mushroom is quite harmless. So why is it blue? In nature, very few living things possess true blue pigment. For example, blue butterflies, peacock feathers, and blue birds. More than 90% of them lack blue pigment. Most of these creatures rely on an optical illusion. This mushroom, however, is the real deal. It possesses true blue pigment. And believe me, in the world of mushrooms, species that actually possess this color have truly extraordinary characteristics. But knowing that doesn't answer the real question. Why would a mushroom, a decomposer sitting quietly in leaf litter with no eyes to impress and no mate to attract, bother evolving a color that almost nothing else on Earth can chemically pull off? And why, the moment you cut it open, does it start to bleed? Stick around. By the end of this, you're going to look at every strange colored thing you've ever stepped over in the woods a little differently. Let's get one thing straight before we go any further. This mushroom does not grow anywhere near my home turf in Oregon. I've spent years walking Douglas fir and hemlock forests out here, and Lactarius indigo has never once turned up. It's a mushroom of the eastern half of the continent, oak and pine woods from the Gulf Coast, up through the Appalachians and the Midwest, down into Mexico and Central America, with strange, disconnected populations turning up as far away as China and India. If I wanted to meet this thing in person instead of just staring at photos, I had to go to it. So that's what I did. Late summer, after 3 straight days of rain, in an Ozark oak pine forest thick enough that the humidity feels like a physical weight. The air smells like wet bark and turned earth. Somewhere off to the left, cicadas are winding up and down like a machine that won't quite die. This is exactly the habitat this mushroom needs. Old oaks and pines, their roots tangled together underground in a partnership this fungus depends on completely. I'm on my knees, pushing leaf litter aside with a bare hand, when I see it. Not a hint of blue, a slab of it. A cap the width of my palm, matte, almost dusty looking, in a shade of blue-gray that has no business existing under a canopy of brown and green. My first completely unfiltered reaction, that's not real. Something's wrong with my eyes, or somebody spray-painted a mushroom as a joke. I actually crouched there for a few seconds without touching it, waiting for my brain to correct the color the way it corrects a shadow. It didn't correct. It just got bluer as I got closer. I remember saying it out loud, quietly, mostly to myself. Okay, what are you hiding? So I did what any mycologist would do. I cut it open right away. A clean slice with a pocket knife, straight through the cap, and out came the milk. Every Lactarius, every milkcap mushroom, bleeds when you cut it. That's the defining trait of the genus, the reason they're called milkcaps in the first place. Usually that milk is white, sometimes orange, occasionally a strange saffron red. This one came out ink blue, welling up slow and thick along the cut edge, almost like the mushroom was bruising in real time. Within a minute or two, right where the air touched it, that blue started sliding toward a dull, oxidized green, the way a cut apple browns. But fresh at the source, it was blue. Here's the part that still gets me. For most of human history, we've treated a look like this, a deep, saturated, unnatural blue on something growing wild in a forest, as nature's own warning label. Poison dart frogs use blue that way. So do a handful of venomous sea creatures. We've built an entire mental shortcut around it. Wild and blue equals dangerous. That instinct is so old and so automatic that most foragers, even seasoned ones, will walk straight past a fresh indigo milkcap and assume it's something to leave alone. But that instinct is wrong here. Lactarius indigo, the indigo milkcap, is a well-documented, genuinely good edible mushroom. First described back in 1822 by the American botanist Louis David de Schweinitz, and moved into the genus Lactarius 16 years later by the Swedish mycologist Elias Magnus Fries, it's been known to science and eaten for 2 centuries. In rural Mexico, it's sold by the basketful in local markets under names like añul or hongo azul, gathered by families who've been harvesting it for generations. It's not some fringe curiosity people are afraid to touch. In parts of its range, it's dinner. Now, I'm not telling you to go slice into the next blue mushroom you find and fry it up. Even people who've foraged this species their whole lives check gill color, latex color, and habitat carefully before it goes anywhere near a pan, because there are a couple of close lookalikes that only resemble it while young. If you ever want to eat wild fungi, that call belongs to an expert or a trusted local guide, not a video on the internet. What I do want you to walk away with is this. The gut instinct that color triggers in us is measuring the wrong thing entirely. So if it's not a warning label, what is it? This is where it gets genuinely strange, because to explain this mushroom's blue, we first have to talk about almost every other blue thing you've ever seen and admit that most of it is fake. Take a blue jay, pluck a feather and crush it between your fingers, and the blue disappears completely, leaving behind a dull brown. There was never any blue pigment there to begin with. The feather contains microscopic pockets of air arranged inside a protein scaffold, and those pockets scatter short blue wavelengths of light back at your eye while letting the rest pass through. The same physics, called Tyndall scattering, that makes the sky blue. Peacock feathers manage something similar with layered crystal-like structures in their barbs. Morpho butterflies take it further still, with nanoscale ridges on their wing scales, spaced so precisely that light waves reflecting off them interfere with each other and reinforce only the blue wavelengths. Destroy the structure and the color is gone, because you were never looking at a pigment. As far as we currently know, not a single vertebrate on this planet manufactures a genuine blue pigment, not one. Among insects, only a small handful of butterfly species have ever been shown to pull it off. The Obrina olive wing is the textbook example, laying down an actual blue molecule called pterobilin instead of faking it with structure. That's the club this mushroom is quietly gatecrashing. Buried in the tissue and the milky latex of Lactarius indigo is a molecule with a real tongue twister of a name. 1-steariloxymethylene, 4-methyl-7-isopropenyl azulene. Forget the name. Focus on the family. This is an azulene, a class of compound built around a 7-membered carbon ring fused to a 5-membered one, and that unusual ring shape is exactly what allows it to absorb light in a way that leaves behind a real, stable, honest blue instead of an optical trick. Related azulene compounds turn up elsewhere in nature. Chamomile flowers, for instance, produce one during steam distillation, which is part of why true chamomile essential oil comes out blue. But inside the fungal kingdom, a working blue pigment like this is remarkably rare. And here's the twist that turns this from a fun fact into something closer to a magic trick. Inside an undamaged mushroom, that pigment barely exists at all. Chemists studying related Lactarius species have found that in intact tissue, the compound sits locked away as a colorless, inactive precursor, a fatty acid ester tucked inside the mushroom's internal milk vessels called lacticifers. It's only when the tissue is physically damaged, cut, bitten, torn, that enzymes inside the mushroom spring into action, converting that stored precursor into the free, visibly colored pigment within minutes. This mushroom isn't walking around blue for show. It's manufacturing its blue on demand, the instant something breaks its skin. And here's where I have to be honest with you, because it's tempting to wrap this up with a tidy bow. The mushroom turns blue to scare off predators, mystery solved. But the truth is messier than that. This rapid wound-triggered color change shows up across several Lactarius species, not just this one. And in most of them, researchers suspect it's tied to some kind of chemical defense, a burst of reactive compounds released right where an insect or slug just took a bite. But the complete ecological story, exactly who this defense is aimed at and how much the color itself matters versus the chemistry underneath it, is still being worked out. What we do know for certain is how this mushroom survives at all, and it has nothing to do with color. Lactarius indigo can't grow on a rotting log or a compost heap or a factory shelf like a button mushroom. It only exists in partnership, an ectomycorrhizal relationship with the living roots of oak and pine trees. Its thread-like hyphae wrap around and even grow between the outer cells of fine tree roots, and through that living connection, the fungus hands the tree water and hard-to-reach soil minerals, while the tree hands back sugars it made through photosynthesis. Researchers have confirmed this partnership works with a strikingly wide range of hosts, from native oaks in Mexican cloud forests to Scots pine on the other side of the planet. Cut down a mature oak and pine forest, and the indigo milkcaps disappear along with it because there's no tree left to trade with. That dependency is exactly why nobody has ever managed to farm this mushroom commercially. You can't fake decades of an established forest. And this pigment isn't just a forest curiosity anymore either. Food chemists have taken a real interest in it because stable natural blue dyes are genuinely hard to come by. Most blue food coloring on shelves right now is synthetic. In the last few years, researchers have successfully built this exact azulene compound from scratch in the lab and tested it as a candidate for a natural blue food colorant. Separately, biologists have used the same chemical family as the starting point for fluorescent probes that can detect reactive oxygen species inside living cells, real tools used in real biomedical research. A pigment that started out as a forest mushroom's wound response is now turning up in laboratories that have absolutely nothing to do with fungi. I sat there for a while after I cut it, just watching the color shift from blue to green along the edge of the blade, thinking about how close I came to almost not looking twice. Because that's really what this mushroom tests when you get down to it. Not your mycology knowledge, your instincts. Every warning bell built into me by a couple 100,000 years of primate evolution was ringing the second I saw that color. Stay back, this is wrong, this doesn't belong here. And for once, every one of those bells was lying. What I was looking at wasn't a threat wearing a warning color. It was one of the only true blue pigments the entire fungal kingdom has ever managed to produce, sitting quietly in an Ozark forest, doing a job that has nothing to do with impressing me, trading nutrients with an oak tree, waiting for the moment something breaks its skin. That's the part I keep coming back to. This mushroom didn't evolve to be beautiful. It evolved to survive in a very specific, very unglamorous way. And the blue, genuinely rare, genuinely real, was just a byproduct of the chemistry that got it there. We're the ones who showed up and decided it meant something. Maybe the real discovery in that leaf litter isn't about mushrooms at all. Maybe it's about how much of what we call instinct is really just an old assumption we never got around to questioning. So next time something in the woods looks like it doesn't belong, a color too sharp, a shape too strange, before you decide what it means, get a little closer first. Not every blue is a warning. Sometimes it's just the truth, dressed in a color nature almost never gets right. If this kind of hidden chemistry is your thing, hit subscribe. There's a whole kingdom of stories like this one still waiting under the leaf litter. And I want to know, have you ever come across a blue mushroom or something in the woods that made your gut say stay away before your brain could explain why? Tell me in the comments. I'll see you on the next hunt. Speaking of the color blue, Recently, pharmaceutical companies in the US have begun making significant investments in psychedelic mushrooms that affect human consciousness, and certain regulatory changes are expected to move forward more quickly. We'll cover this important topic in upcoming videos. Stay tuned.